a haunting ship, a missing crew, an infinitive evil. Hey everyone, it's Don G. Corleone here, and I am here with episode 5 of Halloween Horror Movie Review Season 5, and today's episode is going to be for 1997's Event Horizon, directed by Paul W.S. Anderson. What is the plot of Event Horizon? Well, in the year 2047, a group of astronauts get sent to investigate and salvage the long-lost starship called Event Horizon. The ship mysteriously disappeared 7 years ago on its maiden voyage, and with its return comes even more mystery as the crew of the Lewis and Clark discover the real truth behind its disappearance and something even more terrifying. So, how was Event Horizon made? Well, many of you obviously all know Event Horizon had quite the history of how it got made. The movie had a very bad production, like filming and editing got rushed by Paramount when it became clear that Titanic would not meet its projected release. The original 130-minute cut of the film, because this was supposed to be 130 minutes long, was heavily edited by studio's demand, to Paul Anderson's annoyance. So yeah, this film has quite the notorious production, and little heads up guys, this is my newest Scream Factory release, because I bought this a few weeks ago so I could review the movie for you guys. And this did come with, this is the variant cover, it came with, the actual front cover is, right there, but honestly, you know what? I like this cover better, so I swapped it with this one, because it's the movie poster cover. So I swapped it with that because I like that cover looks cooler. To me anyways. Some might obviously prefer the one that's like the slip-on cover or the protection cover. Well, things are hard to get back in. Some may prefer this, but personally I prefer the movie poster cover better. But yeah, had quite the troubled production, because it got heavily re-edited because Paramount was so scared of their stupid Titanic movie getting released on time, so they basically fucked over this for Titanic. But once the film was shot and marketed, it was a critical commercial failure. $60 million budget, box office only made $42 million back. But the movie did begin to sell well on home video, and its initial DVD release sold so well that Paramount tried to contact Paul W.S. Anderson to begin working on restoration of the deleted footage. But guess what? It was already too late for that, because the footage had been pretty much lost or destroyed. And that's sad, because with this one, I really hope maybe they could announce something yay, guess what? Us Scream Factory people, we found the deleted footage, and then maybe this could have gotten even more critical evaluation if they had restored all that footage, and we got to see what it originally was before it all got erased. In the years since, Event Horizon has developed a cult following, and often does get referenced by other works of popular culture. Now, we could get onto my reaction to the movie. This was technically my first time watching this movie this year, and I think for a film from a director I am not a fan of, because this guy's directed trash like the Resident Evil movies, directed Alien vs. Predator. I think for a Paul W.S. Anderson film, I think this easily is his best work. And definitely one of the best sci-fi horror films of the 90s. This is one of those films that, honestly, I agree, kind of deserves the recognition it is now getting. Many people hated this when it first came out, but now, many people like this movie a lot better than when they used to. It's a combination of sci-fi and horror, and it has this distinct atmosphere that you can feel throughout the whole flick. You have the idea of a hell dimension that's accessible through a black hole, and, it seems far away and it's so close. Yeah, that's an idea that could give any viewer the creeps. You don't see anything through the want-to-be there dimension of the dimension you don't want to be at, but the effect, it has on the crew really says it all. The plot's pretty simple, but the film doesn't really dwell too much on the plot. Like, it does not imply, like, it's a mind-blowing idea. Right there. It's pretty much, yeah. The movie would often be dismissed as, like, Alien and Hellraiser combined. Like, Event Horizon's one of those films that honestly did not deserve any of the critical bashings it got. And in fact, it should have been ranked among the classics of its genre but sadly, that's because, well, it got studio interfered by Paramount executives. Like this was even directed by a guy who would later direct some really bad misfires. And like this film shows that this guy could have been a great director if he had just been given the shot to direct a film. Like if he directed more films like this guy could have been a legendary sci-fi director. Had this not been studio interfered, like this sci-fi horror deserves to be better known. It's not, yeah, there's not an alien aboard the ship, but the strange presence is just as frightening. Like when the crew have visions that involve like eyeless loved ones, like for a film that isn't well known, it's got a surprisingly strong cast of actors like Lawrence Fishburne, Joey Richardson, Jason Isaacs, Sam Neill, Sean Pertwee. They all pull in solid performance, but it's Sam Neill of the cast who really puts in the most memorable performance as Dr. Ware, the character that becomes pretty much more dangerous as time passes. Like, whether this guy's going insane or he's getting possessed by some evil controlling the ship, it's kind of hard to figure out. There's definitely a lot of disturbing imagery in the movie, and both like where we see what happens to the old crew of the Event Horizon, and when things start to really go bad for Rescue Team as the film progresses. When it comes to Dr. Weir, Sam Neill's character, Dr. Weir, he's pretty much this satanic figure that's worked well enough, where he slowly succumbed to the evil, and then the climatic battle with Captain Miller, Lawrence Fishburne's character, like, and Dr. Weir, it's not a bad final fight, but it's like, they're like, not bad for like a fist fight with the creature from hell, but why would this creature yell when Miller destroys the ship? Like, it's clear, like, throughout the movie, that's what he wanted. He wanted Miller to destroy that ship, so he could... Wasn't the point was to send everyone straight to hell? Wasn't that his whole plan? So, it does kind of gets a little confusing there. Right there, but... Like, you have such a great plot with great material to work with. Like, the way it gets executed, though, it caused it to be seen as a disappointment to many. But it's so popular now, like, it's still flawed, but... Right there, like... But this was a film that, like, the problem with this film was it just got interfered by people. So it sadly didn't get to have the recognition it's finally getting at the time it came out. So how do we start off the film? Well, we start off with the year it's set in 2047. You hear a distress signal received from the Event Horizon that the starship had disappeared during the maiden voyage to Proxima Centauri a few years earlier. Then the ship mysteriously reappears around Neptune, and the rescue vessel Lewis and Clark gets dispatched to investigate it. The crew that consists of Captain Miller, Second-in-Command Lieutenant Stark, Pilot Smith, Medical Technician Peters, like Engineer Ensign Justin, or Dr. DJ, and Rescue Technician Cooper. They get joined by Dr. William Ware, the Event Horizon's designer. Ware pretty much briefs them on the ship's experimental gravity drive. You have a simple visualization of how it told space-time. The distress signal consists of a series of screams and howls, and like DJ believes that it's the like Latin phrase "liberate me" or as in "save me." So once the crew pretty much boards Event Horizon, the crew finds evidence of a whole entire massacre. They search for survivors, and the ship's gravity drive activates and briefly pulls Justin into a portal and causing a shockwave. And it damages to Lewis and Clark, and the crew are forced to board the Event Horizon. Justin, on the other hand, then emerges in a catatonic state, and Smith and Cooper are sent on a spacewalk to repair the hole in the Lewis and Clark. So pretty much right here, in this film, like, the concept of what hell is really a place that's a dimension that's beyond ours, is definitely a nice little concept right there. Like, whereas if bending time and space like this film is doing, like, it could really open a door to a world like this. Like, that's something I do wish we kind of focused a little bit more on. Right there. I do wish we could have gotten more something like that. Right there. Because then maybe it would be... That's another thing, like, that. Another thing that probably would have made the movie much better received. If they kind of focused a little more on that. It's like... Man, there's still good pacing in the plot, but what we get instead just doesn't build as much doesn't really build a lot of tension. It runs like 96 minutes because, well, It wasn't supposed to run 96 minutes, it was supposed to run 30 minutes, but it got cut. Like, now when it comes to the acting of the other cast of the rest of the cast, like, the rest of the cast, Lawrence Fishburne is probably also the other great actor in this movie. He's definitely this fair captain, like, and you could tell like this character does generally care about his crew. Like he turns a tight ship, and it's fair. Like yeah, does give a good performance in the film. Like Samuel easily is still the best standout, but right there and stuff like Samuel's character. He's definitely very creepy. Like when the film goes on, Quinlan was pretty solid. Like yeah, it's definitely a character you can feel bad for since her son is disabled. She wants to stay on Earth with him. Richardson is pretty fine in her role as well. Like Jones, Pertwee, and Noseworthy, they're also pretty solid in their roles. It's like Jones, there's sometimes when Jones can kind of get a little bit annoying at times, and there's not much else like the rest of the actors, but they do good with what the material they're really given. There's also some scenes like where the characters do show concern and emotional attachment towards one another. Like, given that the two of the rescue ship's crew are female, like another great thing like with these two female characters, I like that they don't have this romance subplot with some of the crew members because that would have been way too corny. Like, it's nice to see like characters acting like in a way that allows them to show fear while coping with the situation in a good manner. Like, unlike the traditional extremes of the horror genre, like such as annoying idiots or ubermensch or just characters making stupid decisions. No, these guys barely make stupid decisions. Like Lawrence Fishburne does provide like a suitable commanding presence as a strong leader that cares about his crew, and Joey Richardson comes off as the perfect second in command. Event Horizon, like it's a perfect example of like talent, and it takes the basic elements of separate legends like such as like Alien or The Shining. It kind of combines both those movies in a way. Combines elements of Alien, combines elements of Hellraiser, combines elements of The Shining all in one film. It's like a class of religion and science too. And what would happen if they like merged Alien, The Shining, and Hellraiser all into one film? And what makes like this effort work here is like the attitude towards the horror element and the amount of work put into the element of suspense and character building. Like it's done they clean and safely use the CGI and they're pretty well done set pieces. Like the back, like yeah. And look, another thing, like when it comes to the character Jason Isaacs, like another cast member I forgot to mention, he plays a ship medic and American. He doesn't do too bad either. Like so anyway. So once they're like on Event Horizon, the Yanks then give legend Kathleen Quinlan as the resident med tech and Richard T. Jones and Jack Noseworthy as the salvatory crew right there. And these characters, like yeah, they don't get much to do, but I wouldn't say they're entirely useless to the plot because there's times when they do come in grave handy. And like once they're on the ship, the crew then begins to experience hallucinations corresponding to the fears and the regrets. The Miller sees a subordinate that he's forced to abandon to his death. Peter sees her son with his legs covered in bloody lesions. Weir sees an eyeless vision of his late wife, urging him to join her. Justin attempts suicide by decompression, but he gets saved by Miller. Then the crew places Justin in stasis, and they discover this video log of the Event Horizon's crew fornicating and mutilating each other shortly after first engaging the gravity drive. Then the log ends with a shot of the Event Horizon's captain holding his own eyes gouged from their sockets. He's speaking the Latin phrase from the earlier distress call, right there. And pretty much it turns out, and DJ ends up translating the phrase that was liberatituma ex inferiis, which actually means like, it was not save me, or it was save yourself from hell. In the way there. So anyway, like the crew are pretty much warning anyone that would find this log of them being killed to save themselves from having to enter this hell dimension. Like, and then Ware explains that the ship's drive opened a gateway to a hell's dimension called the known universe. That's pretty much implied to be hell in this movie. And the Event Horizon has attained sentience, and like Miller wants to now destroy the ship, so he orders evacuation, and Peters is lured toward death by a hallucination of her son. Weir, on the other hand, who has gouged out his own eyes because of the hallucination he saw, is possessed by the evil presence, uses this explosive device to destroy the Lewis and Clerk, and that kills Smith and blasts Cooper into space. Weir then kills DJ by vivisecting him and concerns Stark onto the bridge. Then Miller confronts Weir, who overpowers him, and then initiates a 10-minute countdown to activate the gravity drive and return to the other dimension. Wait, you can kind of see where the film's kind of going from there. Now this crew realizes that Weir is actually not as good of a person as he seems, and they all have to pretty much survive. Have to pretty much get off Event Horizon, and they have to survive with their lives. As the rest of the film progresses, like, one of the strongest assets, it lies in the eerie atmosphere and the set design. Like, the spaceship's decaying interiors and haunting empty hallways, they effectively convey this sense of dread and claustrophobia. It combines with this haunting musical score, the visual adds to the sense of foreboding and tension, and it pulls the audience deeper into the nightmarish experience. Like, now it's like, is this film perfect? Okay, sure. I mean, it's not like a flawless movie. It's definitely not perfect if people would deeply analyze the logic in every detail. Like, the plot is simple. The acting is still pretty good, but what makes a movie is kind of the atmospheric horror. Like, if you're willing to see beyond, this is one of the films where you have to be kind of willing to see beyond the flaws and dive into the atmosphere of the movie. But there's still plenty in this movie to love for, horror genre fans. Right there. And one of the best bits of the movie is when all these characters are experiencing hallucinations, and you have the theme of humans, trying to interact with something they can't understand, right there. The hallucinations are very well directed, Paul W.S. Anderson, in general, his direction is fantastic in this movie, and Adrian Biddle's cinematography is also great. And what makes this concept much more terrifying of a film is that the crew has no idea what they're about to encounter, and it makes the movie more watchable. You feel them confused, you feel them scared. You don't know what's lurking in the bowels of the Event Horizon. It's like you're in a fugue state of mind, like the Flight or Fridge scenario. What you do if you're seeing all these things that creep up on you from your bad past memories or something, contorting them in front of you. Or, in the mind, what you're seeing life like in front of your eyes, what if it is or if it isn't true, or this unseen monster that's kind of mocking your weaknesses and your fears. These seem like very frightening, horrible visions. You hope really don't want to come true. And another great thing is, you don't really ever get to see where the ship Event Horizon went, or what the old crew encountered. You don't get to see the monster. The only thing that's kind of portrayed in this wonderfully written, directed film is kind of the monster you do see is kind of our own, the characters' own inner demons, as they kind of like your own inner demons. So, once they find out the truth of Event Horizon, and they're all pretty much now trying to escape, Cooper uses his spacesuit's oxygen supply to propel himself back to the ship, and then appears at the bridge window. Weir then shoots at him and shatters the window, and Weir gets blown into space by a decompression. Miller, Stark, and Cooper, they survive, they manage to seal off the ship's bridge, and their own ship is then destroyed, and Miller then pretty much plans to split the Event Horizon into pretty much two with explosives, and use its section as a lifeboat, but the hallucinations then start to attack him, and it turns out to be the Resurrected, and further mutilated Weir, and it's pretty much the final design of him. You pretty much seen the thumbnail that I posted right there, and the design on him looks very terrific. I gotta say, the design was pretty very well done with what I saw. I really like this whole tattoo demon-like guy, that he really is inside. So, once we get Weir's final form, mutilated form, Miller fights him off and then detonates explosives that sacrifices himself and destroys and pretty much kills Weir in the process. Right there, this film does have all the suspense, gore, and quite a warped sense of horror that a lot of sci-fi horror fans would probably get a kick out of when watching this. The scenes that do great, there's involved, people smarted against walls, or crew killing each other in sick, twisted ways. There's quite a good looking part where one of the crew decompresses out of space. The crew do their jobs in believable and logical manner. The exploration of Event Horizon, The inside of Event Horizon looks incredibly creepy, and hints are like dropped in the first third of the movie. They set up the story very well, and knowing what you're pretty much about to get into. The sets, the caution design, the setting, they do portray the well sense of dread and horror. This dread of horror does keep up for the first 2/3 of the movie, and it doesn't really lighten up. Like the story's like not just about like this demonic, but this whole like demonic presence in space. Like it's about like its characters as they're all pretty much trapped on the Event Horizon ship. The audience like actually takes the time to get to know Captain Miller and how he failed his previous crew. Sam Neill, like they do well in like kind of exploring his villain and kind of more of his character. His story does get explored well, and pretty much like these characters kind of have to deal with their dark past that caused by the ship and its supernatural presence. Like Event Horizon, it shows us like the state of the art ship that's like limited by human imperfections, and like it's easy to see how like when this design was like in the '90s, like you can see why this movie is finally getting some reassessment, like and giving the ship the look and feel of like kind of like a church, like the connection with hell, in a way. Like it shows that the filmmakers try to put in this subtext beyond like just an ordinary slasher film. They didn't try to make it just some ordinary slasher film in space. It's kind of a religious demonic possession film with a space-like theme. And Adrian Biddle, the cinematographer, he uses camera shots to capture the dark beauty and knows to keep it steady during the action scenes and not like shaky and all over the place. Like, in a way. Like, yeah. Yeah, like the nerve. And the sound design, like the sound design of the movie is very nerve-wracking. Like, it's making some of like the horror scenes perfectly timed, the heart-pounding moments, and like the visions from hell sequence, but like, or it's like even have like when they're viewing the footage of what happened to the previous crew of Event Horizon and how they got like mangled and tortured and mutilated, like it feels like you're kind of watching a real snuff film right there. It's kind of like in a way a bit like the hellish orgy scene in a way, that the hellish orgy bit like they're watching, or where they're like getting mutilated. Like there's times when it does feel like you're watching a snuff film that got lost in outer space. You're kind of feeling like real footage of that stuff. And so now we get on with our finale. So the way this movie ends, where after Miller has sacrificed himself to defeat Ware, blow up Event Horizon, the gravity drive then activates and it pulls the ship's like stern section into a black hole. Stark and Cooper enter stasis by this comatose Justin, and they wait to be rescued. Then we cut to 72 days later after the events of the film. The wreckage of the Event Horizon gets boarded by a rescue crew. They discover the survivors in a stasis. So when they find Stark, like Stark at first, like Stark does see Ware posing as one of the rescuers, and she immediately screams in terror, but then she pretty much awakens, though, and it turns out to be just a nightmare. And Cooper is there, and him and the rescue team, they're trying to calm down the terrified Stark that thinks Ware's there, and like you hear the echoing sounds of "you're safe" as the doors close. They're getting ready to calm her down with the sedative. Right, like you hear her repeatedly screaming, and you hear like the darker, sinister line, "We're safe," and and the doors close. That kind of leaves you. That does kind of leave somewhat like the vague hint, like maybe Ware is still alive out there. Maybe he didn't die after all. But they don't like over tell you how Ware died. They're fucked. No, it doesn't do that. Like it leaves you wondering, maybe what if Ware did survive? It leaves you guessing. Like it kind of leaves you. It kind of leaves to your imagination. Like maybe you could pretend Ware survived, or maybe you could pretend Stark is just hallucinating things because she's just traumatized from everything. So it's not really. I wouldn't really call it too much of a downer ending per se. It's more of a vague, like implied, like guess what happens next, bittersweet ending. Like where Stark at first thinks Ware's still alive, but it's a nightmare, and it could become clear from my point of view, Ware's still dead. I just like to pretend that Ware's dead after this movie, and this is just a hallucination she has because she's just scarred for life after everything she went through on being trapped on Event Horizon. She's just never going to be the same ever again. She lost her crew, she lost her captain, she almost ended up getting trapped in a hell-like dimension. So she's going to be scarred for a very long time. That's how the ending for me goes. In a way. She's just never going to be the same again after all this. And I don't think anybody would be. But that's the end of Event Horizon. So, Event Horizon is a good movie. Does Event Horizon have bad qualities? Well, yeah. The studio meddling definitely is one. Kind of made it a problem. And the movie does attempt to do some psychological terror and some musing, but there's the themes of the movie, they end up being a little muddled though because of the studio interference. Right there. Some of the more minor characters are two-dimensional stand-ins, like right there, and the CGI can be kind of a bit of a hit and miss, where sometimes it does look good, right there, and sometimes it does look bad. Except for the looks of the ships, the looks of the ships is some of the best. It's definitely the best design of the film. So yeah, the problem is some of the characters can be two-dimensional. This got studio interfered lots of times, so unfortunately we didn't really get to see the 130-minute cut. They probably would have developed a lot of stuff better than the theatrical cut did. I do wish we kind of got the unrated cut, and it sucks that the original footage is gone, because I would have liked to see the original cut of this and how it probably would have looked. Other than those, though, I think Event Horizon is one very underrated sci-fi horror movie that is totally worth buying for those that badly want to see an underrated film from Paul W.S. Anderson and see proof that this guy can make a good original movie. That maybe at first some people might not know what to think of it, but over time it can be reevaluated. And this movie certainly has gotten that. So in the end, if you want to see a Shining or Hellraiser movie in outer space that is very underappreciated, totally watch it by Event Horizon for your Blu-ray collection, no doubt. And if you're wondering... Anyways, guys, that's it for my review of Event Horizon. And if you're wondering how I'm going to rank Event Horizon, here's how I'm going to rank this movie. So overall, if you want to see Paul W.S. Anderson do a movie that actually is underappreciated and well-directed and love the idea of a Shining or Hellraiser-like movie in outer space, I would totally watch it by Event Horizon for your collection, no doubt. If you're wondering how I'm going to rank Event Horizon, I'm going to give Event Horizon an 8 out of 10. There we go, guys. That wraps up the review for Event Horizon. So, what's going to be our next episode? Our next episode is going to be for the piece of shit ripoff it got around 5 years after this ripoff of a fucking movie. Yeah, fuck you, Ghost Ship. Yeah, we're going to rip an asshole into that next. So you'll finally see me do a rant for the next episode after 5 episodes of good movies. Now you can finally see me destroy the fuck out of something. Because I think Ghost Ship sucks ass. That'll be so fun to rewatch. Perfect. So, until then, guys, that will be it for this episode. Thank you all for watching. If you like this and want to see more, don't forget to like and subscribe to Don G. Corleone.